Mediating conflicts between relatives after DNA discoveries. A conversation with mediator Angela M. Miller. That is our topic for today. Welcome to the Lawyers and Mediators International Show and Podcast by InstantMediations.com, where we discuss law and conflict resolution topics to educate both professionals and everyday people. Catch regular episodes on YouTube, the Instant Mediations app, and anywhere you get your podcasts. Just remember, nothing in these episodes constitutes legal advice, so be sure to talk to a lawyer, as cases are fact-dependent. Hi, everyone. This is Mac Pierre-Louis, attorney mediator and arbitrator, working throughout Florida and Texas.
And Natalia Ołowska-Czajka, advocate, mediator, and arbitrator from Warsaw, Poland.
All right. And today we'd like to introduce Angela Miller. And Angela, we're going to have you speak a little bit about yourself to explain what you do, who you are to the audience. But first, wanted to just open up the door this way. So we met Angela recently at one of the Mediator Roundtable events online, and she's based in Florida, Pensacola specifically. But this woman is a world traveler. I think she's been to like over 40 countries. And because of that, she has a wealth of experience, a lot of knowledge that helps her become a good mediator. And so she presents incredible twists on mediation. So that we're going to hear about today, which is why we wanted to have her on to speak a little bit about what she does, specifically when it comes to post-genetic testing results, post-DNA test results, because that can be a little interesting. Anyway, Angela, tell us a little bit about yourself before we get into the questions.
Hi, well, I'm Angela Miller, and I'm actually an Army veteran who has lived around the world, like you said, many continents, many countries. I've also had 25 years experience as a Department of Defense educator at embassy schools and military installations around the world. I've had the great privilege of teaching students from 36 different countries at one time in classrooms. And so I have a profound understanding of what communication is, especially internationally, as well as how familial communication changes culturally.
And having learned all of that about you, which of course made us very happy for you to be here with us, we would want to proceed with something that is very personal to you and has created a very moving story that led us to this topic in particular. And this is about our own DNA testings. Many of us maybe face this sort of a choice to do it or not to do it. And Angela has a perfect example of how it can be done, why it should be done, but also what it can lead to. And Angela, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I think for myself, as growing up as a child, I had different illnesses and medical issues that my siblings didn't have. And so, of course, that made me feel a little bit different and made me stand out a little bit differently as well. This led to several disputes, parental disputes about why my medical issues or concerns were different, as well as brush-offs about them as, you know, what the doctor may not be correct or this information isn't correct. By the time I was 17 years old, I enlisted into the United States Army. And this led to a whole new discovery for me because the medical issues that I was experiencing, not only were they labeled at that time period women's issues, but they were culturally related issues that weren't discussed or shared very much. And I got sent to a specialist who actually was able to pinpoint some of my medical needs. And that led to me into doing DNA and genetic findings, and as well as being more inquisitive and asking more questions about my health.
Go ahead, Natalia.
And Now we know that the first reason why people have to consider that is that they might have genetic issues that
Mhm.
can help improve their health, but also the health of their children. So it can be actually very positively motivated. However, can you tell us about your way some more?
Yes. Unfortunately, I ended up with cancer twice in 2 years. And that led to BRCA testing, which was still fairly new in the medical world, but the military was using it. And what I learned about myself and what I discovered was that I had an Ashkenazi gene. And these traits that I had inherited were unknown to me. And had I learned them as a child, there were many medical issues that could have been deterred. Now, learning this about myself also led to more discoveries that needed to be done and asking many more questions, especially how did I end up with this trait and my siblings don't have this? Did I have a different parent? How this parent would be found or learned about, and how would I prevent any of these illnesses from being passed to my own children?
So a lot of people do DNA testings, right? And we were talking off stage that you, me, and Natalia, we've all done DNA testing
Mhm.
because we had different interests. I mean, my reasons were, well, I wanted to find out more about where I guess I came from on the continent of Africa.
Mhm.
All right, Natalia has her own, reasons, and you can share that if you'd like, Natalia. But I didn't. I mean, it was personal to me. I found deep interest in, placing myself on the continental map, but that's kind of where it ended. Right now, I could go deeper. Okay, I could want to find out a little bit more. But in your situation, things, I guess, resulted in you doing a lot of introspection, a lot of thinking about identity. Can you go into that a little bit? How genetic testing these days can lead to these sort of self-reflections, and then how that can then lead to conflicts within families.
Absolutely, my pleasure. I think there are stages you actually go through. The person who you thought you were, you no longer exist. There is something profoundly new about you that you have to learn how to handle and manage. And what are you going to do with that information then? Because there's a whole different path now you have to take. With that brings lots of emotions, and more questions. Um, when was this learned? Was it a secret? Was it intended to be a secret? Was it unknown? And then once you have this information, honestly, the genetic impact it can have on you today, as well as future generations in your family. And how is this information to be shared? Is it just between you and the parent? Or is it between a denial of a parent? Is it something that isn't supposed to be shared at all? And then what about that second parent? What happens then? What if that person's moved on and you don't know how to reach them or find them? So, in this regards, that's when these websites like 23andMe and GEDmatch and different websites, MyHeritage, they are all beneficial, but it's also in how you use them. And that becomes a new education for you.
So when I was doing my test, I was doing it exactly within the territory of the United States. What I didn't know is, of course, what I'm going to find out. Most of the testing with, for example, my heritage is being done within the territory of the United States, although I did it from Poland. And what it turned out to be is, of course, that I'm very local to the area where I am, and genetically, actually, from the Central Europe, which was again quite interesting. Um, and yes, this is a very moving experience to see, because this is a moment that links you back to some generations you have no knowledge of. The percentage of your particular nationalities or ethnicities shows something about what our predecessors were doing, our ancestors have been going through. And I don't believe that we were ever before aware of that. And that's the first dimension. I believe is the bigger one. However, it then narrows down to our personal experience about whom we stem from. And I guess there is something you want to share with us too, Angela. Am I right?
Yes. And so for myself, my discovery was not a welcome discovery. And so, what do you do when you really don't have the people to communicate with to find out more? And it kind of stifles you. It becomes an emotional, traumatizing experience that you're an adult. And so, when we talk about, for example, mediation, we're looking at um, lots of legal aspects, but this isn't legal. This is emotional. And when you start looking at that, is how do, when I find the parent that perhaps doesn't want to be found, how do I communicate with that person? How do we learn how to communicate with each other without being territorial or insecure or bringing up old memories that may not want to be rehatched? Um, and simply for the sake of, for like me, medical. That was the thing I needed to find, was how to help me and then how to help my children.
So, Angela, why wouldn't it be better for the ice to be broken, so to speak, at a counselor's office or a therapist's office for group counseling between the person who's discovered the information and the other individuals who may have played some role in not conveying the information? Why is mediation more optimal in your thoughts?
Great question. For myself, I actually did participate in counseling because you have to also learn forgiveness. And forgiving means moving forward, it doesn't mean just passing the issue or setting it to the side. And for me to do that, I had to learn how to approach things without being angry and with great interest in that the information I was going to learn or obtain was for me and not to invade or invent any discrepancies or any anger towards or to hold any animosity. And so that's where counseling comes in and is very personal to you. But counseling doesn't teach you how to approach the subject or the topics or communication with someone that perhaps is very apprehensive in doing so.
And then you also get the chance to be like a bridge between generations and between certain, let's say, difficult topics in the family. Because I believe that, imagine we have a situation where someone discovers that their parents are not their parents. There
Mhm.
is a way you can feel betrayed by your own mother or
Yes.
father. There is a way where you also have a need to find your real parent who then might reject you because originally, honestly, they didn't want you. And have you gone through that, Angela, yourself?
I have, thank you. And sometimes it isn't that a parent rejected you, but maybe that parent didn't know about you. And so now you have a parent that you're dealing with, not only for yourself in discovery of that a parent that you didn't know is part of the picture, but also with a parent who may bring with them some aggressions or aggravations with the fact that they missed out on everything because they didn't know. And so there's this void then. So you have to be able to get through those voids and respect each other's boundaries simply for the cause of being able to talk and communicate without having that person feel like you're trying to get something from them or grasp something from them. And the other parent, the original parent not feeling like that they are being tossed aside or left behind because of this discovery.
Yeah,
So,
well, thank you, Angela, for opening up these doors for these different thoughts that I haven't had to me personally think about. Because I mean, I know my mom and dad grew up with them, and we had the traditional nuclear family.
mm,
And so, for a lot of people who haven't had to live, with a certain life experience, it might be easy to, cast it off and not think too much about it. But can we do a sort of experiment, ladies? Could we just brainstorm the different types of conflict or emotions that might come out of something like this, or from DNA tests being discovered? I mean, the one I always think about is the one most people think about whenever they think about DNA testing, and that's paternity with children, right? With babies. That's very frequent. We deal with it all the time in the family courts, but that's just one example where people go and do DNA testing. And the question is whether this man is the father of this baby. So you can establish rights and then, proceed. But this whole new world of where an adult, or adult who might be estranged, not by their own choosing sometimes, an adult who might be estranged from another adult, now we're dealing with a whole new myriad of conflicts that might arise. Can you, Angela, and Natalia, please chime in? Can you guys uh, tell anybody else who might be listening out there who has mixed feelings about all this? What are other types of situations of examples might come up?
um, I think like religion for one, um, learning, if I grew up Catholic and then knowing nothing about the other religion, and all of a sudden finding out that I am a product of that culture and that religion has a significant change and impact on how I have to learn how to communicate with another adult, a new adult in my life. Especially to be cautious, aware, knowledgeable whenever I'm speaking to them, so that you don't cause further conflict or further annoyance with anything. And then I also have to look at how that is going to impact the original parent that was there, because you you are a product of one relationship, but you were raised in another. And so, with that brings some caution and some much needed new knowledge.
When I think about it, I first think about the possibility of the breakup of the family, which is the thing that, for example, if someone discovers that a person who was believed to be the father is not the father. Let's imagine the entire family doing DNA testing and finding this out. That can really bring very difficult situations. But so that can lead to marriage being even getting divorced. But apart from that, I can imagine siblings turning against siblings because they are no longer siblings, because they're strangers. And maybe somewhere there in the world, there is a sibling that awaits me. So, what it creates internally is a conflict and this source of being torn apart with my current life and maybe the life I could have had should I have been placed in another family, maybe in another country, in another culture. And that's one. However, I believe that pretty much, and the practice of many lawyers will be embracing that, and it is good to know that this sort of mediation can exist. Will be the inheritance. Imagine that after the DNA discovery, there are new heirs coming into the light. Everybody believed that there is just like after a deceased mother, there is just the husband and three children. And now we discovered after DNA testing that there is another child that nobody knew about. Of course, it will be more clear if who is being the deceased one is the father. But then the inheritance, how do we decide about that? To share something that was a part of our personal and family wealth with someone who is from the outside. And I believe that these will be the issues that we will need to be able to handle, because that may lead to very serious consequences. And in terms of financial disputes, absolutely of very great amounts of money.
So
Absolutely.
yeah, and there's the one last negative I was thinking about, all the conflicts that come from DNA revealing that you might be related to someone who might not uh, be so good. Meaning, you do a genetic testing and then you find out that the person next door, who's on the evening news and who's done some bad things is your ex, right? Or not literal ex, but like your uncle. And so I think there's a lot of realizations people come to. So definitely therapy might be a necessity, but also when there's a reaching out, so to
Hmm.
speak, sometimes doing it with somebody like you, for example, Angela, might be a good thing because uh, there has to be a way of communicating feelings when this is a topic. All right, but let's turn on to hope. Okay, so
Okay.
tell us now, uh, what are the benefits of coming to terms with all of this and then trying to communicate? What are all the positives, the things that might come out? Because this is something that you wanted to do. What were the
Right.
joyful parts and the happy moments that resulted from the DNA testing and the ultimate unification you had with the other parent?
One of them is one learning my medical history directly,
Yeah.
and sharing my medical history so that I could have a better understanding. And two, with that parent understanding that they had two children, but I'm the eldest and I'm the only daughter. And so that was something that was nice to learn. And then that parent got grandchildren that they didn't know about.
Yep.
And I get to learn about a new culture, a new religion, things that expand my knowledge, and where I fall at in that. Because with every different culture, there's a new place that you have to find in there, especially in your ranking as the eldest or the youngest and things like that. And I think if you look at the things that you can bring out of it that are favorable, that also helps put the other parent at peace that this is not something that could be abandonment or something that could be deterred as a breakup of your family, but more so about that discovery and the benefits that that discovery can bring.
So then tell us, back to the topic of the conversation, how does mediation in these types of cases would it differ from, let us say, family mediation, just on the
Mhm.
basis of, or civil mediation?
I think it's important because mediators are great at helping people learn how to communicate, how to speak. And with the guidance of a few ground rules, of how people can learn how to talk to each other, and decide for themselves what the end result is going to be or is supposed to become, then that's where mediators can come into place. And that's the great role that they can help with this.
So, Angela, I'm going to share your website on my second screen. If you are listening to this on the podcast, you can check out mediationnikon.com, and it will be where everything. Oops, sorry about that. I just stopped sharing it. Give me 10 seconds. Let me go back here. It will be where everything about Angela's listed, the things you practice, like the military, international family dispute resolution, post genetic testing dispute resolution. And
And if you
so,
can,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, that Matt, that's where I came up with the name mediation econ, is because of the
Yeah.
fact that a discovery like this has good possibilities too. And an econ is actually a far side word for things that bring forth good things, good results. And so that's the goal, is for mediation to be able to help with that.
Yes. No. Thank you so much for the conversation. Tell us, what about, there's this concept in mediation called transformative mediation. Okay.
Mhm.
And the goal is not to let people the same. When they come to you as a mediator, you should help transform their relationship, especially when it comes to them communicating. Can you explain uh, how transformative this could be for people who are discovering a new, fresh information that they've never had to consider before? But what are the benefits, I guess, of somebody, one, mediating, but over these topics, but two, how does somebody even go about breaking the ice? I mean, what do
Mm,
you do? Do you just go
great.
to the other person you just discovered and say something like, "Hey, can you go mediate with me because I want to talk to you about something." How do you break the ice?
Absolutely. It's kind of like if you compare it like coaching. Um, you have great players who know how to hit the ball or shoot the ball, but you got some players who could actually become great. And that's where the mediation comes in. So you might have some really good talkers, but they might not know how to cross those boundaries with each other. And that's where mediation comes in. It can act as a coach, as a guide to hearing each other with respect and teaching how to respect each other's differences and how they communicate to unify their ability to be able to hear each other.
And having said that, I think we are getting somewhere close to the end of this episode. And I would really want to thank Angela for sharing her personal experience. I think it's been very moving and very helpful to many that struggle with certain questions about their families, about who they are, and that can encourage them to take certain steps. But what I would want to encourage our listeners or viewers, both the people who will be doing the genetic tests and the mediators, to get interested into more details of all of that, to be delicate, both about the process and the findings, to have grace over everybody who is engaged in all of that, because definitely there is a lot of people here feelings that can be hurt with any findings you will make, and there is a lot of things to be then talked over, discussed, which can bring closeness and some closing that people need into things that they find difficult for themselves.
Yeah, and I'll just add that this topic of basically connecting with family or reconnecting with family is something that we had hit on pretty hard on Brett Lovett's talks, and we're trying to connect you and Brett actually because we want to do episode where we all discuss this a little bit further. But Angela, thank you again for coming. And so your focus is on the military and on post genetic testing conflicts, and I can see why your life experiences have led you to be a mediator that focuses on those niche areas. And I think there's a lot of people out there who actually have these issues, but it's not something that we commonly talk about, right? I can only imagine the fly on the wall at places like myheritage.com or other DNA companies because they don't know, but when people end up finding the results, they can be life changing. All right.
Exactly. Yes.
So, anything else you want to
Thank
add?
you. I'm very grateful for you guys inviting me. Thank you.
Absolutely. All right, guys. This is Mac Pierre signing off,
I'm Natalia Łowska-Czajka.
And
and
Angela Miller saying good night.
all right, take care. Till next time.